Okay, AP Psychology. Let's finish up notebook page 5, our favorite neurons. All right, so neuron communication. When electrical charges travel through the axon, they reach and they reach the end and trigger the release of chemicals called neurotransmitters. Outside the axon are sodium ions, and inside are potassium ions and proteins, creating a negative change inside and positive outside the membrane. So to send signals, electrical charges open the membrane and allows these ions to balance out, activating each other down the line. And once the signal has been sent, proteins in your body activate the sodium potassium pumps to re-separate the sodium from the potassium ions. This process is known as action potential, and when an electrical impulse passes through the axons of the communicating neuron. While all signals are the same strength, your neurons communicate in the frequency of these signals. So I like the example of Morse code. You guys don't know what that is? You should look it up. That's why I'm making a tapping noise. So here is a visual representation of what this looks like. All right. So the sodium potassium pump binds 3 sodium ions and a molecule of ATP. The splitting of ATP provides energy to change the shape of the channel. The sodium ions are driven through the channel, and then the sodium ions are released to the outside of the membrane, and the new shape of the channel allows 2 potassium ions to bind. Release of the phosphate allows the channel to revert to its original form, releasing the potassium ions on the inside of the membrane. There are a ton of videos online that show this cartoon coming to life. So if you want to check that out, you just Google sodium potassium pump and you'll be able to find one. They're only like a couple of minutes. So reuptake. Just kidding. Reuptake. So depending on the frequency of the signal, your body will release different neuron transmitters, that chemical particles and messengers like serotonin, dopamine, endorphins. So these neurotransmitters are sent across the gap of the receptors of the next neuron, fitting into and activating certain receptor sites. So once the receptor has been activated, you experience feelings. Once the neurotransmitters have bound to the receptors, they are then sent back to the original axon, in a process called reuptake or dissolve. So basically the process happens and the reuptake is that they dissolve, they're finished, they go back, that's the end of it. Okay. All right, now the agonists and the antagonists. The neurotransmitters are how we experience the certain sensation, like happiness, sadness, anger. And this kind of reminds me of one of our favorite units that we did, that last one about the abnormal behavior. Some of the reason why folks are suffering from some of those mental illnesses, those abnormal behaviors, is because these things like the neurotransmitters aren't properly working. I know that's very layman terms, but to understand that the neurons talking to each other and the reuptake, all of that has to do with how you feel. And if those things aren't working properly, it's going to mess up your emotions and feelings, and it could create some issues for you. Again, that's a very layman term of what's occurring. So many drugs can mimic euphoria, alertness, and other sensations. They act as the agonists. Agonist is the chemical in drugs that can bind and activate the receptor of the synapse, thus providing the associated feeling. So cocaine and heroin and nicotine, those are like your body is kind of what do I want to say? Not taken aback, but thinks or is fooled into believing, oh, I should feel happy or sad or calm because the agonist, that chemical, is tricking you, right? It's a feeling that high. But what happens is the reuptake can be slowed, and the drugs can overuse and deplete your natural neurotransmitters, leaving you feeling worse after, and that's why you're addicted, right? You want to continuously feel what you felt. And I don't know if you guys, you do remember, I'm sure, we watched that movie, Beautiful Boy, and one of the issues with taking crystal meth was that your body never feels as high as, or you don't feel as high as you did the first time. So you keep taking it, and people take more and more and more, and that's why they overdose, and that's why it's so highly addictive. That's because that depleted natural transmitters in your body are being depleted, right? Because the reuptake is slowed. So what's worse, some drugs act as an antagonist, chemicals that bind and do not activate receptors, and sometimes permanently. So knowing all of this, so if there is an issue, you may want to review the brain activity, or just, have, at times brain tissue can be damaged. And these are known as lesions. They destroy your brain cell, or destroying a brain cells. The brain can also suffer other problems, complications and disruptions. So abnormal amounts of neurochemicals such as serotonin can lead to depression and reduced neural activity, right? So for some folks suffering from depression, it could be because of something that happens, or it could be this neurochemical issue, right? So the problem is suspected. There are multiple contemporary techniques for viewing the brain and its activity in live and alert patients. So more technology was used to view the brain, so patients are alive and alert, and this happened around the cognitive revolution. Okay, and I think you remember these. These are the different mechanisms or machines that we'll go over them, things that we use in order to scan your brain. I would be shocked if this was mentioned, but on the FRQ, but it is good to go over them. All right, so an EEG can target the electrical waves in your brain down to specific stimulus. A computer CT scan, X-rays that reveal brain damage. A PET scan shows brain consumption of chemical fuel, so glucose levels. An MRI, it puts the head in strong magnetic field that aligns spinning electrons of brain molecules. It disorients them with a radio wave, and they return to normal. And it can give you a detailed picture of short tissue. And then there's the functional MRI. So the other one's so we have the magnetic resistance imaging, and then the functional MRI. The functional MRI scan less than a second apart to track blood flow and reveal activity in areas. So the only way I see this happening or showing up on your exam, the FRQ, is that there's some sort of scenario where someone is dealing with something, a brain trauma, and they ask you, well, if we used this method, what would you find? And thank God Notebook page 5 is done. I apologize if this is not my area of expertise. This is the most dreaded section of the whole thing for me, to be quite honest with you. And what's funny is some science teachers who teach this course love this unit. So I apologize. Remember, Crash Course is out there. You know how to find it. There's tons of videos. If I did not do this justice, which I'm sure I didn't, so please, I apologize. And again, do your best in looking anything up that you need clarification on.